Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Podcast. Josh Lander, your host, as always, looking at a Wednesday slate of games here in the NBA, getting to these things early with you guys, as promised after that first video I gave you on Monday. I do want to mention that James Harden is now a Clipper, so is PJ Tucker. I'm sure you're all well aware by the time of watching this video, but it's worth mentioning at the very least, even though that probably won't affect us here on Wednesday. I think James Harden will be at the game on Tuesday night. He could technically play on Wednesday, but doubt that he does. So we're still going to be looking at somewhat of a skeleton crew there for the Clips on Wednesday night. We'll get into some of that and how we're getting ahead of some of the bets that we can make for that game. Friendly reminder that I do want you guys to go ahead and like and subscribe to this page on YouTube as well as on podcast if you're listening to it. But I also want to remind you to head over to thelines.com, their YouTube page. I'm a heavy contributor for them. Obviously have my NBA Coast to Coast show there with Nate Weitzer, my co-host, and we are doing very well over there. So I like to keep the actual picks that we make over there, although I will be talking about a parlay for the people using some picks from the show for Tuesday night already. But I do want to mention that is where I'll be putting all of these picks out with Nate. You can also follow me on Twitter. That's where you can get this stuff, as well as Instagram. Obviously, if you're following on YouTube already and watching this video, thank you. And please subscribe. It's very helpful. Maybe even turn on those notifications. Make sure you get these daily videos that I'm bringing to you guys. All these picks are going to be all over those places. So out here on this particular channel, I'm going to be looking ahead to the next day's games. But we are going to be kicking things off with a parlay for the people that's highly relevant to the NBA Coast to Coast show, as I'm taking the picks from that show, putting them into a parlay and bringing them over to the Land Your Bets pod over here with you guys so that we can all make some money on a parlay together. Jumping into what we've got for today on the show, as I mentioned, going to kick it off with that parlay for the people, give you guys a chance to win some money on the bets that I'm making with Nate, some of the best bets specifically that we're making on our show each day. Going to parlay those, see if we can't win some money here tonight on Tuesday night as I'm recording this. This will be coming out on Tuesday as well, so if you get the chance to play the bet that I'm going to give you guys here in a minute, then definitely get ahead of that if you can. The Lander leans that I have for you for Wednesday, November 1st. We're going to jump into everything I'm looking at. I'll go through some of the key injuries to watch out for, the back-to-back teams that we've got playing on Wednesday night after Tuesday night games as well, and a few other leans that I'm looking at based on line movement and things of that nature so that we can stay on top of this stuff together, because the NBA is fast moving, as we know, with all the news that comes out with who's playing and who's not. Obviously, we have this Harden trade now, and so we got to stay on top of that stuff here together on this pod, as well as using the social media channels like I mentioned as well. I'll give you guys a little summary of what to watch for as well. Like I said, I'll just give you all that in one little slide here at the end that I'll also mention for the folks listening on audio, so you can make sure you have a clear understanding of what I'm looking at and how you can keep track of these lines that are going to be moving a little bit here overnight into Wednesday morning. So getting into the parlay for the people. Excuse me. Let me get into the record here. I just want to make sure that you guys are staying up to date with us. Did not do great in best bets there on Monday night for the Coast to Coast podcast. 1-4, lost 2.95 units. However, our bread and butter, the playa props, got 3-1 plus 265 units there. So we only lost 0.3 units on the night, a total of 4-5 between the two types of bets that we made there between best bets and player props. On the season, 26-21 plus 6.55 units. So still way ahead of the curve, feeling really good. About a unit a day for everybody if you're keeping track at home, not even a week into the season until after these games play on Tuesday night. So I'm happy to report a unit a day for sure. Obviously, if you keep that rate throughout the season, you're making a pretty penny. Best bets, a little bit over 500, up more than 3 units. Same for player props, 13-10, up 3.5 units there. So we'll keep trugging along. Let me get to that parlay for the people. Russell Westbrook, triple-double. I'm just going to go with him for that quote-unquote parlay for the people. Obviously, we're sort of parlaying his points, rebounds, and assists, if you will, as we need him to get the triple-double, double stats, double-digit stats in all of those three categories. It's plus 1,800 for $10 when I hit it. I think that went up a bit. If you wanted to play it again at like plus 2,200 before the game starts, you might be able to find that in some places. So if this does hit, $10 at 18-1 is a solid $180 to whomever does follow along. Like and subscribe to this, like the video here. Subscribe to the page. If you're following on podcast, make sure that you are subscribed to that page as well and rate the podcast. That kind of makes you perma eligible if you do that on audio, to just have your name thrown in whenever we do win a parlay for the people. So I highly suggest doing that rather than having to like every single YouTube video every time. Although obviously I would appreciate it. Just a little bit of a cheat code for those of you guys listening on audio if you want to do so. But let's jump into what we've got for Wednesday. And I'm going to kick it off with a bit of an injury report so you guys know what to look for before you just start making bets on Wednesday when you get up. If you fail to watch this video in time or listen to the podcast before you start making bets, know this. De'Aaron Fox is out versus the Warriors. He suffered an ankle injury in their last game, and we'll see what type of availability he'll have moving forward. It's probably going to be at least a week for him that he'll miss, and that's going to be a big deal for the Kings, which I'll talk about here in just a minute as I'm eyeing some stuff for Wednesday when they take on the Warriors. Kyrie Irving is questionable versus the Bulls. Trae Young is questionable versus the Wizards with an Achilles. You never like to see that. Jimmy Butler is now questionable versus the Nets after Bam was a last-minute scratch in their loss to the Milwaukee Bucks the other night. Jimmy didn't even play that many minutes then. That's probably when he got quote-unquote injured. Spencer Dinwiddie on the other side of that game for the Nets is questionable to play versus the Heat. So we'll see what happens to him. He's been a really nice scoring option for them so far in this season, which we know he's very streaky. So we'll see what that actually means for Dinwiddie moving forward. But he's questionable to play for the Nets versus the Heat. So just some things to keep an eye on. And then the back-to-back games we have Cleveland and New York. Cleveland is at New York on Wednesday night, and you're saying to yourself, no, they're playing at Cleveland. And I'm like, no, that's on Tuesday night. This is a back-to-back of the exact same matchup, a home and then home for these two teams as they'll face off again. We know that Darius Garland and Jared Allen are out for Tuesday night. We'll see what Wednesday's the injury report looks like for them on a back-to-back. And then we've got the Battle of LA, the Clippers and the Lakers. The Clips will be on a back-to-back after playing Orlando on Tuesday night, and I'll be talking about that game here in just a sec. So let's jump into this first lean that I have. Lander lean number one. The Lakers are going to be taking on the Clips, like I said. Harden could play, but he's probably not going to play. We don't even know what kind of shape he's in. He hasn't played a basketball game yet this season, and who knows how well he was taking care of himself in the offseason. So we'll see if he even does play, but not likely. So I'm looking at the Lakers. -4.5 or better is where I would consider them. Anything under 5 for them, and I think you can take that if it comes out early. I'm telling you to take a look at that in the morning when you guys wake up. Make sure that you do see if what the line is as an open for the Lakers and Clips. We're not going to get that in time for most of you who are going to be anywhere east of the West Coast. You're not going to be staying up late enough to see what happens at the end of that Clippers and Lakers game, and certainly not up late enough to see when those lines start popping up for that game. So check them out in the morning. And like I said, if it opens at better than -5 for the Lakers, I think I would take that even before seeing the injury report. I think you can always hedge a little bit if you find out that Kawhi and company are playing. But I still think that that's a good early bet is the Lakers at -4.5 or better. The Clippers last year on no rest were 6-9. Nice. -5.7 margin of victory against the spread. So they failed to cover the spread by about 6 points per game when they played at home, only covering it 6 out of the 15 times that they were on no rest. Not at home, sorry, on no rest last year. That's also because they didn't really have PG or Kawhi playing in those games, as we know. So that would be a good reason to keep an eye on that and see what the status is, if there's anything changing this year, that these guys are going to start playing on both nights of a back-to-back. I doubt it. So they're going to have a diminished roster after Harden was traded to them, right? They just lost a bunch of guys: KJ Martin, Robert Covington, Marcus Morris Sr., and one other as well, Nick Batum. So you know that they're going to be thinned out no matter what. Terrence Mann is still nursing an injury, likely to play. We'll see on Tuesday night. But with this back-to-back and such a thinned-out roster and their reserves coming in like Harden and PJ Tucker, not likely to play, you can get ahead of this line that might move even more into a bigger line. You might see it in like double digits if there's a bunch of no-names playing for the Clips versus the Lakers in this one. So I would still look at Westbrook props when they come out. I think Westbrook's going to keep playing, barring an injury to him, knock on wood, that doesn't happen in the Orlando game on Tuesday night. I think you can still bank on Westy playing hard, as we know he always does in these games, especially when he's sort of the only option. He's happy to be a volume shooter at any point in time. So keep an eye on his props. If it's just him and a bunch of ragtag guys against the Lakers, might be worth it. If it's too bloated because they bake into the fact that it's only him playing in that game for them without any of his superstar sidekicks, then don't worry about going over, figure it out. But as you know, I'm already on him for a triple-double tonight with those two guys playing in a game against the Magic where he's going to be relied upon to do a lot. So That's where I start with my first lean here. Lakers -4.5 or better. Second lean I've got is in that Warriors and Kings game. And I don't know that I'm going to be attacking the Warriors line, which opened at 7.5 in this one, just because De'Aaron Fox isn't playing. Yes, the Kings were much worse without Fox, which I'll talk about here in one sec. At the same time, like, it's a rivalry game. It's one of those like in division rivalries where once you get it to more than a touchdown at -7.5 like that, and who knows, it might even be bet up. I don't think there's much value on taking such a massive home favorite in that situation, just because De'Aaron Fox, who's very important, but is still going to be, substitute. He's going to be replaced by Malik Monk, who is going to come in and do a pretty good job as far as scoring goes. At least he normally did in the playoffs anyway, when they were missing De'Aaron Fox. So I think there's still a good opportunity to maybe even take the Kings if it gets too high and out of control, like at 9.5 or 10.5. That might be a little bit out of control in this one, where they should be able to keep it a bit closer than that. But more importantly, my favorite bet would be to take an under in this game. And without De'Aaron Fox last year, which was just 9 games without him, they were 4-5. They scored 109 points per game to the Kings, and they played at a 97 pace. In the 73 games with him, 44-29, much better winning percentage there, 122 points per game, played at an 100 pace, because obviously he's the engine that makes this team go. We know that. In the 9 games that they lost, one of those was to the Dubs at home last April. And the Dubs won that game 119-97. Still doesn't get you over the 229, obviously, that they would need. And then that's kind of what I'm feeling, is like, even if the Dubs get 110, or 120, let's say, and you still need the Kings to get like another 110, 111 to go over what I'm predicting here as a good under. I don't think that's possible. And the Dubs are going to play slower at home. We know that they're going to play much better defense at home. We also know that, and they should have guys rested after another, day, at least a day off, since they played on Monday. They'll have Tuesday night off, and then they play at home, where they're very good, play very, very good defense, all that. So I'm leaning under in that game before anything. But keep an eye on who's going to be playing for the Warriors. Could always be some randomness with them, especially when they know De'Aaron Fox is out. Maybe Chris Paul takes a break. God forbid Steph takes a break. So we'll see how it goes. Draymond, obviously a candidate to do that as well. Keep an eye on that. But the under, when it comes out, under 229.5, I love that. Then my final lean here, Minnesota +5. You can't get them at that right now, and I'll double check while I'm talking to you here and multitask. But when I started recording this just a minute ago, +5 for Minnesota wasn't available. But they're playing the Nuggets at home, and this opened at -1.5. The Nuggets then climbed up into about -4 as people started betting on them a bunch with such a small spread against a Minnesota team that obviously most people consider the Nuggets to be better than them. And I would fully agree with that. However, this is still a situation where once you get up to 5 points, that might be a little bit too many to feel comfortable taking the Nuggets on the road against this Timberwolves team. It's still at +3.5 or so. I think +4.5, +5 is a good number to get Minnesota at home. The Denver, as an away favorite last season, 13-17 against the spread, failing to cover, so 17 out of the 30 times. They were a -4.9 margin of victory against the spread. So if their spread was -3, they would, either that would mean they would actually lose that game by about 2 points. If their spread was -8, then they would obviously only be winning that game by about 3 points there, because it's about -5 on the margin of victory. So they're just failing to cover by a solid 5-point cushion. Once you get up to about +5 and you need them to win by double digits, I don't like it. I much prefer the Nuggets. We also talk about how this +5 number is very important in basketball, because it's sort of like a touchdown spread in football, in the sense that it's a key number in basketball to keep an eye out for. When you get to 5 points, that's when teams start to sort of give up at the very end of the game. If you think about that's a couple possession game, right? Let's say it's like a 5-point game with down the stretch. Now you're talking about, okay, it's at least 2 possessions. Even if we foul and they get 2 free throws and we hit a 3, they're still up by 4. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not a great spot for a team that's trying to come back, and eventually teams will give up with a bit more time left on the clock when they're down by that number. So that's just a really key number to watch out for. So once we get to +5, I really like taking Minnesota as my third lean. Okay, a quick summary of the leans that I have. Lander leans here, 3 of them for Wednesday night. LAL to beat LAC. So the Lakers over the Clippers. Keep an eye on that spread. In the Sacramento at Golden State game, under 230. If we can get it, keep an eye out for that total in that game. And then the Minnesota and Denver game, if you get Minnesota plus 4.5, we'll say plus 5. I like both numbers, but plus 5 would be preferable to keep it to a push at that key number of 5. I like all three of those bets in this one if you can get them in the context that I keep talking about here, right? Like Minnesota at the right number, stacking Golden State at the right total number to go under in that game, under 230. And then the Lakers to beat the Clippers. But obviously, if it's like, once we start getting towards double digits in that one, again, it gets a little crazy. I prefer it if you get LA better than minus 4.5, minus 3.5 in that range. If it opens at that number or so, which might not be until Wednesday morning, then I think that's a good number to hit it at early. So that is all the time I have for you guys in this one. Continue to follow along, like and subscribe if you would. Like I said, it is key to winning that parlay for the people. If you want to be eligible for that, I'll throw your name in. If we do hit that triple double for Russ tonight, then I'll go ahead and throw your name into the potential winner's prize pool. You will win that money, and I'll go ahead and Venmo it to you, get a hold of you if Russ hits that triple double. But you do need to like this video, subscribe to the page, also need to follow along on the podcast and rate it to be eligible on audio. And until I talk to you guys next, happy betting.